Once you've jumped out of the airplane, you can't jump back in. So no matter what has happened in the market, and no matter what has happened to a property, we still got to finish it so we can turn a profit as best as we can and deal with what is. The market saved me. We didn't realize how many things were messed up with this property because we kind of set it and forgot it. That might have been okay because the market kept going up. And in this case, the market did keep going up. But like I said, I made $5,000 on this house. And in reality, I probably should have lost $80,000 to $100,000 on this property because I messed up that bad. We took this 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that was roughly 1,100 square feet and turned it into a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home to make it 1,850 square feet. And despite making it a beautiful home, despite making all the repairs better, despite doing all the stuff you're supposed to do that I've done for years on these properties, we still went $70,000 over budget, and we went over literally almost 8 months over schedule. Now, in the past, going over schedule on some of these properties over the last few years have actually helped us real estate investors because the market just went up higher. But this time, if we would have been off by 1 or 2 more months, we would have lost money on this property. So I want to show you guys the before photos, and then I'm going to get into all the numbers on this property and all the details of how we messed it up and why this is probably the last property that we're probably going to get saved on due to the market. All right, here we go. Look at this beautiful house. It actually doesn't look that bad. It's actually built in 1929. This is actually in Tacoma, Washington. It doesn't look too bad. It's actually kind of a pretty front. And from the outside looking at it, it doesn't look like it needs that much repair. But as you start digging into it, you start asking yourself questions like, hey, why are there a bunch of downspout extensions? Why there's a big ass hole over here by the window? What's going on with this property? I don't really know. I got to look into it more. So whenever we walk these properties before we buy them, we always walk the exterior as much as possible and take a ton of photos, and then we go on to the inside. And we're looking for red flags when we get into this property, into these properties. Now, such as this big hole, there's somebody dug that hole, and there's a reason why there's extensions here, and it's probably water related if I had to guess. Now, looking at the rest of the property, the siding looks okay, the windows look okay. This is a downstairs into a basement. Some of the things that are kind of nice about properties in this area is that we have a lot of basements that we can finish. In order to get the value, when we looked at this property initially, we thought that we would need to finish the basement. But another red flag, notice it rains. So the water was coming down into here. So there's probably water issues in the basement that we're going to have to solve. Now it has a garage, and we were counting on it having a garage. But if you look at this thing, it doesn't look that pretty. It looks pretty messed up. Some of the questions we had to ask ourselves when we got into this property was whether or not we can repair and finish the garage, or do we have to tear it down and build a new one? Looking from the outside, it kind of looks like you got to have to tear this sucker down. And we ended up having to tear it down, but we didn't fully budget for what that was going to cost us. Now, in the front of the house, it looked like the roof was going to be okay. But once you get to the back of the house, you could tell that there's different pieces of roof material on the back of the house as well. And you got to ask, is this an addition? Because if you have 2 different roof types, an original roof type and possibly a different roof type, there might have been an addition or some messed up repairs at some point. So those are key things that you got to look at when you're starting to work at these properties. The rest of the outside doesn't look too threatening. This is inside the garage. You can tell that it's totally messed up. We end up tearing the whole thing down, like I said. So we'll continue going forward. That's kind of a got to You ask yourself why they put a bunch of expansion foam throughout these cracks. Is it because of water? Is it because of bugs, whatever, rodents, pests, that kind of stuff? You got to look into that a bit more. And then when we walk into the back of the house, immediately you can tell there's been some remodeling, and some remodeling that has not been finished. So this is knob and tube. This is old electrical. That's stuff that we have to get removed. You can see some new framing with some old framing. These are all things that we're starting to look at. Now, this is a heavier remodel already that we knew we were going to be doing, and we're going to be ripping out a lot of stuff. We just didn't realize how much stuff we were going to have to rip up once we got into this property. A lot of times we budget for these properties to do all new electrical and all new plumbing anyways, and we plan on doing a lot of sheetrock for older houses. But this property, because it was a homeowner remodel, that's one of the downsides of working on a homeowner remodel, is that sometimes the repairs weren't done correctly, or weren't done sufficiently, or weren't done to code. Those are big red flags that we kind of missed on this property because we assumed things were decently good before buying it. But once we got into the property later, it put us back on rehab for sure. So this is something to consider. If you have original hardwood floors and then a transition into new flooring type, that's probably because this was an addition at some point. and not original at all. You can see here, this is probably where the exterior was. This is a beam. So at some point, somebody added an addition here and never transitioned out. Now, was that to code? Was it not? Those are things we had to find out later. Sometimes these things move quick. Now, remember, we bought this in late April 2021. So stuff was still weird. Construction was weird. Market was booming. And there was a lot of demand for real estate and construction. And a lot of things were going on very quickly. And we were being affected by it as well. But we were thinking we were buying really good deals. The rest of this, you can see it's pretty dated, which is fine. But it's in good condition. Going through the rest of the property, we wanted to go into the attic. Attic's fine. Nothing wrong there. But you can see a lot of old knob and tube that needed to get taken care of. The basement is where we thought the money was going to be made. First off, the stairs going into the basement are going at an angle, at a 90-degree angle as soon as you turn into it. And the head height sucks. You hit your head as soon as you come in. And you could tell a little bit, this is where the basement door was on the exterior. Water gets in there. And it's just an unfinished basement with a lot of PEX piping, a lot of just, it's not really, you don't live here, right? You got to ask yourself too, these are questions. There's a sub pump. And there's a bunch of broken out concrete. These are red flags when you realize that water gets into this property. You got to find out why and where. So some of the questions we had to ask ourselves before we bought this, because we had to move fast, was like, could we finish this basement out? And for us, we've done this so many times. The answer was yes. But how do we want to design the floor plan and how we're going to make it to code? Because these stairs weren't really good to go for code wise, and especially head height on the stairs themselves. We needed to solve for all of that. So outside of that, those were the only big issues we thought, besides electrical, plumbing, all the standard stuff that you just have to do when you do a larger remodel like this. All right, so one big thing before we get into all the numbers is I want to show you guys here. This is kind of how, this is our chicken scratch floor plan that we like to make when we walk these properties. So we walk them, take tons of photos. We're looking at all the things we could find. The reason why we take 100+ photos when we walk it is so that we can come back and analyze the rehab in a lot more detail, a lot more numbers and so forth. When we're sitting at our desktop, is a lot faster and easier, in my opinion, especially for certain remodels to do from your computer when you have all your spreadsheets and all the stuff you can do, and you can't really effectively do that without lots and lots of photos. But one way to get a clearer understanding of the floor plan is just while you're there, or have somebody on your team draw out a very quick floor plan sketch of what everything kind of lays out. So this is the front here. This is the living room, the 2 bedrooms, a 1 bath, kitchen area, and then here's the stairs and there's the back door. In addition to that, our dude Nate, he's a acquisitions expert, but he's also a artist of none other. And he was able to draw the basement as well. Basically a big square, and that's about it. So it doesn't get more complicated than that. So remember, this is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 1,130 square foot home with an unfinished basement. So in our market, when we find an unfinished basement that has enough head height, but we might have to mess with the stairs, we see value there. So we can maybe get another 700-800 square feet into the house because we could finish the basement out fully and add huge value to the property. That's a bonus, especially in a market like 2021 was, where everything is super hot. So we might not be able to buy a property for a big discount, but we can add value by adding square footage to the house. That's how we were doing a lot of our business back then. We converted it into a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home at 1,850 square feet, 1,850 square feet. So we added over 700 square feet to this property to be able to get that higher list price that we were looking for. Now, when we evaluated this property originally in late April of 2021, we thought that we can sell it for $460,000 if it's fixed up. So working backwards and working with a wholesaler, we were able to tie it up, pay the wholesaler about 10 grand, and so we bought it for roughly $240,000. So 240, we thought it was worth 460 fixing it up. We can work with as far as rehab, and based on our past experiences, we thought we might spend about $115,000 on the actual rehab cost. However, we got a little too casual on this deal and it ended up becoming a much bigger deal than we could have ever imagined because we didn't expect 2021 to skyrocket as much as it skyrocketed in equity and for rates to be as low as they were at that time. And because of that, everybody got crazy with actually doing more construction of their homes, doing HELOCs, refinancing their properties, blah, 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 which led to a huge construction craze, but also a huge real estate craze. So a tremendous amount of demand and stress was put onto the different services that affect real estate, such as contractors, title companies, insurance, like everything, mortgage companies, everything was just strained, appraisers, all that stuff, because so much demand and it was so hot in the real estate market back in 2021. Well, that affected supply chain as well, because there was only limited supplies. Now, supply chain was dramatically affected by other reasons, not because the real estate market boomed, but the limited supply that was available became readily purchased by pretty much everybody because of so much demand and construction. This led to us going over budget and over schedule quite a bit. Now, in the meantime, I'll show you guys my profit and loss sheet that I use for all my properties. This right here, this shows you here that I plug it in the number. I was going to buy the property for $240,000 roughly with a little bit of closing costs. I estimated a 6-month holding time, and with the way that I was going to be borrowing money and whatnot for it, I was going to spend $34,000 a year on interest, which is $28.33 a month, and over 6 months, that's roughly 20 grand with some miscellaneous costs. I assumed the after repair value to be $460, and I was going to spend about $115,000 in rehab. And we have some excise tax in Washington at 1.78, plus additional closing costs when we go to sell the property and pay a real estate agent commission. So we figured we're going to make about $46,000 to $50,000 on this property if we hit all our targets after all closing costs, right? So not a bad deal for us. For us, it was just day to day. We had a bunch of these going on and no big deal, especially back then. However, we don't evaluate a property based off of holding costs. We actually remove our holding costs when we evaluate a property because we're looking at these properties typically as if we bought them all cash when we evaluate the risk on a property. So I'm really focused on this number here. I'm not focused on the cash profit on the deal. I'm focused on the cash on cash return on a deal. This was an 18.3% cash on cash return property if we bought it all cash and rehabbed cash, no holding costs whatsoever. And that's how a lot of people evaluate their properties, to kind of give it a neutral level because everybody's holding cost is different. So 18% was good. I preferred 20, 15 was a minimum. So it was right in between where we normally buy to begin with. Where we dramatically messed up was how long it was going to take us to finish it, and also our rehab costs as well went dramatically higher than we anticipated. So I want to go over with you guys a few of the key things that happened to us, right? And where we messed this up and why we only made $5 grand at the end of the day and why it took 14 months to finish this deal. Now, in 2021, like I said, supply chain issues were still an issue, still an issue today, and there was so much demand on the real estate market. This also included the cities. So this was such a big project that when we bought it, we had to get permits. Now, we always get permits, especially when we're finishing out large basements, getting electrical done, plumbing, and so forth as well. So we submitted our application for permits. We had to do a full plan set. We had to put it all together, and I'll show you guys what those plan sets look like here in a moment to be able to submit for permits. And we thought typically it's going to take us 4 to 6 weeks to get permits because that's what it usually was for us back in the day. However, on this particular property, it took almost 6 months for us to get permits on this property before we could start. Now, despite waiting 6 months, we really didn't do much, right? We could have gotten the garage done. We could have gotten a whole bunch of other things done, but we didn't. We waited. Because we waited, the market got better, and we're like, cool. We also had other contractors of ours working on other projects, so we were okay waiting until permits got issued because we had so many other things going on in our other businesses. But once we finally got going, we didn't realize how many things were messed up with this property because we kind of set it and forgot it. We jumped into it and we had our contractors show up, but by then costs had already risen dramatically. Our contractors were already spread out thin. It was harder for us to find new contractors during that time period. So it just sat and sat and sat. It had huge delays for a lot of our subs and whatnot. Now in the past, that might have been okay because the market kept going up. And in this case, the market did keep going up. So we still thought we were okay. We just didn't realize how bad we were going to be on this property until we got towards the end of the project. So we had to adjust the floor plan on this because once you buy a property, you can't give it back most of the time. Once you've jumped out of the airplane, you can't jump back in. So no matter what has happened in the market and no matter what has happened to a property, we still got to finish it so we can turn a profit as best as we can and deal with what is. And in this particular property, we knew in order to get the best value for it, we had to change the floor plan. So if you take a look at what we did here, on this floor plan, this is the first floor. We decided that we were going to open up the kitchen and the living room area a little bit, put a beam here, and make a galley style kitchen. In addition to that, we wanted to make the bathroom a little bit bigger so it's a little bit more functional because there was a closet right here in this area that we removed so we can make it a more functional bathroom, and we moved the closet over here instead. We also created a little bit bigger closet up here, and we also made a hall closet. And if you guys remember, right in this area was the original doorway that led to the stairs. Well, we removed that and made the stairs over here so we can extend the stairs out and help with the head height. Plus, there was also a beam, not a beam, there was a joist that was right here that we blocked off on the sides and allowed us to be able to open up more head height into the stairwell as well. Other than that, the rest of it was electrical, plumbing, and getting it all situated. But some of the surprises that happened to us as well in this, besides that we thought that everything was going to be, kosher on here, but it wasn't. Most of the windows that we thought were brand new ended up having broken seals, and we had to replace probably about 8 more windows than we thought we were going to replace when we bought this property, because they all looked new to us, but they weren't, and we didn't look close enough. So we failed on that. Additionally, we thought we were only going to do a little bit of repairs to the roof, and after getting into it, it had multiple layers of shingles on the roof, so we ended up having to replace the entire roof, which was another $10,000 that we weren't budgeting on this project as well. Getting into the basement, we did a full remodel in the basement. So not only did we finish the basement out into a whole bonus area, a bed, and add 2 bedrooms to it, including an entire master in suite, and put the washer dryer in here with a walk-in closet, water heater got relocated and so forth. It became beautiful down there. It was a great property. Ingress, egress, windows, which are super important. Those are a lot more expensive, of course, to do that, but you have to have that in order to make them legal basements. This is why a lot of people don't finish these basements, because there's a lot of work that goes into them to make them legal to code, safe, all that great stuff. But something that cost us a lot more than we had anticipated in the beginning because of supply issues and contractor demands was something that would look like this. So if you look right here, this is it. This is what is called an interior French drain. It allows you to waterproof the basement a little bit more. You can see how it's wet already in there. A lot of water was pouring into this property. The window wells were taking a lot of water up. It also had hydrostatic pressure from water coming in. And you can see it's very wet that happened in this property. So the reason why there's a lot of water was filling up over here due to downspouts and coming down, but also water was coming up. Right? So this membrane that is around the perimeter of the property here, this is if there's any water that's coming in from the surface level, it goes behind the membrane and it goes into this area here, which has a perv pipe, which then basically gets collects the water and then kicks it out either to a sump pump or storm sewer line that is approved by the city. So that was something we weren't expecting to pay as much as we paid. We knew we were going to pay something. We just didn't know we were going to pay 30-40% more than what was anticipated. Now, despite all the challenges, let me show you how beautiful this house turned out. Boom! Look at this thing. Turned out really well. It looks gorgeous. Luckily it looks gorgeous. We knew halfway through the project that we were kind of screwed and we were going to be paying a lot more than we thought, as I mentioned many, many times on here. But in order to make up the difference and not lose money on this deal, we had to keep going to make sure that the property looked beautiful. We knew rates were already going up because this is now June, right, or May when we're getting it listed. We knew that we were going to have some potential issues, so we needed to get it on the market quickly before all of a sudden the market caught up with rates going up. So we made it gorgeous. We put a lot of work into it. And we fixed up the whole backyard. We also added a new garage in the backyard. Now we did that by actually paying for a prefab garage and installing it. You guys will get to see some photos in a second. And it worked out great. Here's that front area, big beautiful floor plan, open floor plan concept that everybody loves. It looks gorgeous. We skim coated a lot of the texture on this to make it look like a brand new drywalled house. And in fact, we had to do a lot of drywall anyways because we did so much work on the property. All new electrical, all new plumbing. Everything looks great. New fixtures. This is why the house sold for what it sold for, but it also sold for what it sold for because it was at the height of the market in this area. This is the upstairs bathroom. This is the basement, the brand new basement that we showed you guys earlier. It looks totally different. Can you guys believe that this used to be just the unfixed up basement? It's crazy. There's one of the casement windows for egress that we talked about as well. And this is actually the master that we built. This is the extra bedroom. The big, huge master suite that we added onto it. It's way better than even the bathroom upstairs. And then, of course, the washer dryer unit and the backyard, new roof. And there's that little dinky garage. That's a one-car garage that we had to add as well. That gave it a little bit more value with a little parking pad and whatnot. All right, so house looks beautiful. House turned out great. House sold June 2022. 14 months later, we messed up big time. And in the past, we might have looked like geniuses. But if we bought a property like this today and messed it up this bad, I probably wouldn't be making any videos for you guys anymore because I'd be all out of money. Now let me show you guys the final numbers. And please, the big message on this video, if you're still watching, is today's market is different. Do not buy properties based on appreciation right now. Buy properties based off of key fundamentals in real estate. Buy it as is. Buy it knowing that it won't go up. Buy it assuming that it's going to stay the same. And if the deal works out correctly to where you can buy it at a discount, put money into it, and make it worth more, great. Don't assume that you're going to get another 20% on the upside like it's been for the last few years, because there's a good chance it's not. Buy properties that make sense today, not make sense tomorrow. Final numbers. As we said before, we bought it for $240,000 roughly, and instead of 6 months, it took 14 months. And these are our actual holding costs. It was $2,800 a month for the interest payments on this property. I borrow all the rehab money, all that great stuff. These are the different utilities, insurance costs, taxes, property taxes over 14 months. That's $50,000 in holding costs. Now, we also assumed, if you remember, $115,000 rehab, and we spent almost $192,000 in rehab costs. That's $70-something thousand more than what we originally anticipated in spending on the rehab. Now, instead of selling it for $460,000, drum roll, we sold it for $530,000, and it's not because we were really good. It's because of the market. We had some normal closing costs and whatnot to be able to sell the property. Coming down here, I had a discount on my real estate commission down to 4.5 from the agent that sells it, just to help us out a little bit. 2.3 is our normal selling commissions. Selling closing costs in Washington because of excise tax, and we made a whopping $5,257. Whoop! Now, if you guys thought that you would put $180,000 of rehab in a project and hold it for 14 months and your return was going to be $5,200, would you invest in it? No, most people wouldn't. Huge risk. Now I want to show you guys what this property could have been if the market didn't help us out. If this went back down to $460,000, which was the original ARV that we were projecting, and the market didn't take us up to $430,000, we would have lost $59,983 just from that mistake alone. Thank God the market went up. Thank God the market made it so that we didn't have any losses on this property. It could have very easily cost us another $60,000. We could have also lost even more money if we waited a little bit longer. Today, this property is actually probably worth less than what we sold it for already. So the moral of all this, guys, is to get back to the basics. The market is shifting. I can't get lucky anymore, and neither can you. If you focus on key fundamentals in this business and you know what your real estate strategy is going to be, you're going to dominate the next cycle that's coming. But if you keep assuming that you're going to get appreciation on everything that you buy like it's been for the last few years, you're going to get bit in the butt. I have 2 properties that are on the market right now that I already know I'm going to lose money on. We thought we were going to sell for $1.3 million when we bought it. We had to list it for $1.23, and it ended up not selling for $1.23. It sold for less. The market is changing dramatically in certain markets, not all markets. So make sure you pay attention to yours. It's reality. It's just certain neighborhoods that are shifting. That's what's crazy about today. There's certain cities in the US that are still holding strong, still doing great, and there's certain cities that are not. And in my city of Seattle, where I do a lot of my investing, it's actually specifically neighborhoods on the east and west side. So know where you're investing, know your niche, know your area, know your strategy, and keep to the basic fundamentals, and you're going to do just fine.